Hello and welcome to the energetic forecast for February 2024. My name is Melanie and I'm joined today, of course, by my dear friend Alana. We are going to be looking into and diving into the astrology, the gene keys, pulling some tarot cards, and doing a bit of a deep dive into what the energetics of this oh so complicated world have in store for us in the month of February. Ultimately, Alchemia's goal with these monthly forecasts is to present you with some insights into the energetic patterns and cycles and themes. So we're going to get right into it and take a look at what we are going to be facing.
Love it. Yeah, no, it's so amazing. I was just thinking how fun these are to do, and they give us a moment to like really tap into the feminine, tap into that oracle, and yeah, just get a vibe or a feel for the month ahead. So I love like your analogy of just, preparing and knowing the forecast so you can bring your umbrella, so you can um, you know, be prepared to face whatever the weather is out there next month.
Yes. I mean, there are days when I wish we could just choose not to show up and go through or move through what's going on, but just get your little wellies on, the gum boots, and trudge on forward. I feel like we should acknowledge the month of January that we just had before we move into the month of February's discussion because it was a hectic one.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I feel like, I mean, we did the January forecast, and I feel like we were able to predict the energies, but it's always so different when you end up going through them. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's been an intense month, a lot of amazing shifts, a lot of good realizations, a lot of that like fresh New Year energy, which is always lovely. But yeah, it's been a month, and I know a lot of people are feeling that right now.
Yeah, this January dynamic, of course. Go and check out the forecast if you didn't have an opportunity to. But we had like Neptune and Mercury had a little conjunction there, a little hangout. Of course, Mercury was retrograde. I don't think I expected, like, there's one thing to know that there's going to be some confusion. You're going to be a little blind and feeling around and not feeling clear or having much direction. But man, was I just in the biggest well of brain fog for the entire month of January. It was like a slow and steady. Things clear up towards the end and moving now into February, where we're looking forward and we're understanding what's going on. But the beginning of January with that brain fog was next level. I was not expecting that much confusion, like a limbo feeling. Like I was really in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. For me, I definitely felt like that, like kind of like navigating through that darkness, through those kind of like darker waters within. And yeah, I wasn't expecting that, but you're right. I do feel like now that we're at the end of January, starting to come out, starting to feel a little bit more grounded in this process. I also feel like that forward momentum of Mercury coming forward and some of that Neptune energy coming in. I do feel like there's been yeah, a lot of like amazing shifts and things that are clicking in my life, some old patterns really shifting and facing those. So I'm hoping that other people were able to experience some of those better moments of January as well too.
Oh, yeah. That brings up, of course, ye old master of death and rebirth, lovely little Pluto. Man, Pluto being in Capricorn for 15 years. And this being like one of its last little pushes before it moves on into Aquarius, I think is really, really put us through the ringer here at the end of January, coming into February, having Pluto transition from Capricorn into Aquarius. Death and rebirth is pivoting. That focus in our charts is pivoting, where we are experiencing that phoenix rising from the ashes effect in our lives is going to be different. There is big shifties coming. I'm going to
Yeah.
coin that term. We are not working on a solid foundation of anything we're necessarily energetically used to at this point. Pluto is very busy for the month of February. I'm trying not to sound daunted by it, but every personal planet has a little bit of a conjunction, meeting up, head butting, hip check with Pluto this month. So Mars, Venus, Mercury, all of them, when they move into Aquarius, which is where Pluto now is, are going to have a little meet up with Pluto. So all of the aspects that Venus rules over, aspects that Mars rules over, all of that is all going through this like pivotal, intense, pinpointed moment of death and rebirth as it joins up with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius in February here, right at the beginning. And of course, it trickles throughout the month. But man, Pluto is just doing its thing right now.
Yeah, no kidding. A lot of death and rebirth. Absolutely. So shadowy too.
Yeah, Pluto goes in for like the kill. Like we're going in. It's not just like, oh, we're gonna tickle this over here and see how you feel. It's like, no. Tell me what 6 ancestors previous experienced with this. Like it's in there. But I always have to remember this is all benevolent at the end of the day. Pluto wants to get the poison out, right? It wants to get that ick out. It wants to excavate that which no longer serves. And there is the flip side of that coin. You have this beautiful rebirth. You have an opportunity for growth. It's just having to get comfortable in that liminal space of destruction that Pluto can be really challenging for a lot of people. I mean, it's terrifying, we know, to face the unknown. And especially when it feels like it's so far beyond and outside of your control. So having Pluto meet up with so many of the personal planets, Mercury, Mars, Venus, everything that Venus rules over is going to be targeted around the topics of Aquarius and in combination with Pluto. So abundance, money, love, a lot of the more feminine things in nature, the feminine archetypes, those are all ruled by Pluto. So looking at the death and rebirth of a lot of those constructs, those themes in your life, you have the opposite occurring. We've got that masculine energy of Mars. It's going through death and rebirth, how we move forward, how we enforce our will. All of that's going to get brought to the table. Mercury, our mind, our fast, quick discernment, a lot of the cognitive process, a lot of our structures and organization, all of that's going to be going through death and rebirth cycles. And this is all occurring in the wonderful revolutionary heart of Aquarius. So it's to say that there's going to be big changes that are going to be very supported by the astrological events that are going on coming in February is an understatement. I think we are past the slowness of January. We talked a lot about speed and timing when it came to January, about slowly planning for the future and not jumping in really quick with all of those like energetic achievements and goal setting and things we got to do right now. We talked about how with the Mercury and Neptune conjunction, it was going to slow that all down, right? Well, now, yeah, all of the planets are in forward moving motion for February. And it's been a hot minute since we've had that happen. So I think our speed is back up. We are moving forward. And I think there's going to be a little bit of an intense demolition process with Pluto kind of like gatekeeping Aquarius. So if anything wants into the Aquarius part of the sky, it's got to meet up with Pluto and go through a bit of a death and a rebirth coming here.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a lot of different areas. And, you know, for those of us who are new here and haven't seen our forecast yet, you know, we also like to bring in the gene keys, which is the work of Richard Rudd. And so the very first gene keys that we start off February with, in Aquarian fashion, of course, is going to be Gene Key 49, which is the shadow of reaction, the gift of revolution, and the city of rebirth. So I think that ties in. We're just like doubling down on this energy of revolution, rebirth, death and rebirth, you know, with the Pluto and the Aquarian energies. So yeah, I mean, things have been intense and things are moving forward, like you said. And I think we're going to have to really ground and center ourselves within in our being as we navigate these intense aspects of that are leaving, that are dying, like you said.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of things that are being let go and released. And I think Aquarius is a great archetype to step into, to work with and call forward in yourself when you're going through these dynamics. Innovative, progressive, rebellious, humanitarian, all of these dynamics of the Aquarius archetype are going to be hugely emphasized. Of course, it's Aquarius season. And this is a really good thing. Like I said, Pluto, these dynamics of death and rebirth, rebellion, revolution, it all comes out in the wash. Like this is a refinement process. We are moving towards more cohesive worlds, more cohesive energies, etc. But you got to go through the nitty gritty destruction first. And it can be a lot. Aquarius rules over like our groups of people, right? Like our friends, um, like our volunteer dynamics, like big humanitarian underlying component. It's also a fixed air sign, the water barrow. It's got a huge barrow. It's got a huge perspective switch. Like it's very macro. It thinks very much so about the collective, and it's not so individually focused, which is why a lot of people can feel like Aquarius is emotionally detached, and it can be, and sometimes it's an incredible skill, but that's where the water bearer dynamic comes from. It's this very capable and empowered intellect that then can hold space for all of the emotions that are going on. So this archetype is getting trickled all over our lives in February. It's Aquarius season. We've got the sun, the moon's in Aquarius for a bit, Pluto, those personal planets, Mercury, Mars, Venus, all in Pluto. Oh, sorry, all in Aquarius. I'm going to get my tongue tied around that all day. But all in Aquarius. So this energy is basically calling us to like how do you move in relationship to every group that you're in? How do you show up in those groups? How are you innovating? How are you progressing? Are you going against the grain and being called into that rebellious kind of archetype? What in you is being revolutionized? What are you then revolutionizing outside of you? And how can you rise to that intellectual capacity of holding great space for emotions and not disconnecting from your emotions entirely? It's a lot.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I haven't looked at the astrology for February until today, and she's busy.
Yeah, no, and I mean, when you think about even just like what's been going on collectively, we see so much polarity, we see so much fighting, we see so much like separation occurring in the collective right now of like, them versus me. There's these kind of fighting, these polarities kind of happening. And so I think this like death and rebirth cycle where we can kind of like things are about to shift into the collective matters. Let's come back to remembering that we are one, that we are together and we're not alone, and finding those people that we can connect with and like listening to the collective. What are they saying? Like, feeling that pain, feeling it all, connecting to our emotions. Again, there's this external aspect, like you're saying, to Aquarius in the whole, but ultimately it's through that internal process that we're going to really allow it to change us, to really find those realizations and to let go of what needs to be let go of.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you look at the shadow frequencies of the gene keys that we're dealing with, you see our current headlines. You see discord, reaction, desire, and all of the confusion that comes with that one, victimization, a perceived weakness. All of that is like really big in the zeitgeist right now, especially how vast that victimization shadow can be with gene key 55 that shows up in February. Mm-hmm. This is such a clingy, sticky pattern that us humans move in, are totally steeped in as we're learning our lessons throughout our lives. And it's so prevalent, I think, in the zeitgeist that's going on right now, especially those three: reaction, desire, and victimization.
Yeah, and I love the victimization gene key itself. It's the only one in the whole 64 gene keys in the hexagram that is like the gift and the city frequency. So the gift frequency and then the highest it can manifest are the same. So it's victimization, freedom. And so there's like this absoluteness to this state. Is like life is either happening to you and you're a victim, or life is happening for you and you are free and you get to navigate this world with curiosity. And yeah, it might be hard, but you get to really like learn from it and mine and get the gems. And so yeah, I think there's like within this month, opportunities for huge shifts on an individual, but also a collective level. And like, gosh, I feel like it's been a long time coming on both of those fronts.
Well, and it's that like little tiptoe, right? Like a little bit of internal work until like all of the individuals in the collective get us here, and then it like pivots the pendulum swing of the macro and our what our systems look like, our governmental bodies, our organizations, our structures. And I think that's a perfect way to put it. And it's so beautiful how the gene keys give words to the energetics that are going on, because having that that decision, that perception switch about what this kind of rebirth, death and rebirth can do for us, right? Just because things are, it's that trusting process. Like when things fall apart, you got to trust that there's going to be something that's coming that's better, or that's bringing you closer into alignment, or that's fulfilling you in a different way. It's realigning with that trust frequency of being like, okay, Pluto might be killing off all of my ideas of who I am, what I thought I was doing in this world, and all of the people I thought I was going to do that stuff with. But we got to trust that it's going to come out in the wash. There's going to be an opportunity for us to co-create, to show up, to be free, and to be empowered in making that kind of contribution through our life's work. So it's
Totally. And
definitely
these aren't like light gene keys, you know? Like they're like
no.
pretty valiant sounding gene keys too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're definitely getting called forward. Like you're getting called into action is what it feels like, because there has been so much political unrest, social unrest, injustices. Like, I mean, we've had Pluto in Capricorn for 15 years. If you look at what Capricorn rules over, it's our structures, our government. This is like the transitioning period out of that kind of rigidity, tradition, organization. You know what? Like it Capricorn is a heavy ass earth sign. Like it's not light and fluffy. Like these are some big systematic, it's ruled by Saturn, like heavy, hard, movable topics. And Pluto's been messing all of that up for the last 15 years. And you can tell, you watch the news, you can tell there has been some upheaval. And I think a really beautiful transition in energies that I feel that's coming here is that switch from Capricorn with Pluto, for Pluto to move into Aquarius. Aquarius is still ruled by Saturn traditionally, Uranus in more modern or Western approaches. But so there's still that like intensity to the revolution aspect within Aquarius, and especially with the death and rebirth energy of Pluto, there's still that like we are excavating and we are changing big things. But the motivation of our friend groups and the people involved in the systems, I think, is going to be this shift of the death and rebirth. So we're no longer just looking at the structure that we've been upheaving and changing and revolutionizing and destroying and critiquing and judging. We're not just talking about the structures anymore. We're actually going to start seeing people's focus pivot to the people who make up those things, to the individuals who choose to follow the laws or the rules or the unjust biases of a society. We're going to start looking at the individuals who show up and partake and uphold those structures, and the ones who are not willing to revolutionize or change or rebirth or die off and restart. We're going to start seeing people's focus shift from look at all of the wrong structures of the government and the businesses and the X, Y, and Z, right? Like the non-human aspects, to looking at the people within those systems and realizing that it's like within those hearts that this shift is going to be won, that the death and the rebirth needs to occur. It's not about, oh, the system is so broken. Yeah, that's fine. Well, that system's only ever going to change when the heart of the individual who works in that system, who benefits from that system, who has suffered from that system, all of that needs to unify in a certain way. And Aquarius really is that archetype. Aquarius really is for my fellow man, for humanity at large, for our future, for, for the cause.
Totally. Yeah. No, I feel like there's this beautiful opportunity here to really confront, some of our ignorances within ourselves, confront like that poison that you talked about, to see. And I think a lot of these things are like, they're just shadowy, they're just unconscious. And so like when you see people that are like in the collective that, like you said, maybe aren't engaging or maybe aren't revolutionizing, maybe aren't stepping up in the way that maybe we've deemed they should, is that there's kind of an innocence behind that. But I do feel that this is going to be brought to light. And I think with that's going to come, like you said, like the grieving process, feeling all of the feelings, maybe like now that you can't hide from that. And so you have to see it, you have to understand, and that it is about others and it's understanding others, how we're all engaging together and how we're all yeah, because right now we're just stuck in this blame cycle. It's just that victim is just so heavy on social media, in the media, and again, not saying that these aren't meaningful topics that need to be brought up, and this is a part of the cycle. But it's like, yeah, we're coming to this supportive point with the heavens, with the astrology, that now, hey, look, guys, it's the time. The time is now to step up and, like you said, for that greater cause.
Mhm. Well, and that even ties in the last gene key of that is in February the 37th. Weakness,
Mm.
equality, and tenderness, right? Like the
Yeah.
progression out of the shadow of weakness to the acidic frequency of tenderness, that's a journey in and of itself. And the fact that the bridge between those states is equality. I think, again, such an Aquarius flavor to that because it is not about us all fighting the same fight. It's about you showing up and doing your best to fight the fight that you are called to fight and to
Hmm.
trust that every individual is out there doing what they are called to do, that they have, whether that's an internal dynamic, whether it's protesting here, whether it's boycotting this, or whether it's making sure you feed your family, this type of stuff. Like there is so many different ways that this shift and this pivot and this transmutation and ascension and journey that is human collective evolution plays out, and to realize that we are all fighting our own, well, fighting, I like to use war terms, we're all fighting our own specific type of battle, and to, I guess, view that as equal. It's not that this type of protest is best or that this type of rebellion or reorganization or revolution is what we all ought to be doing. It's that humanity collectively has different people in different points in their journey, points of their experiences in their lives that need to be showing up fully in that moment and moving and doing their work where they're at. And that is equal to anyone else's revolutionary state, right? It's not about all of us joining for one revolution. It's about serving the internal guidance of like our light and our authentic
And
paths,
there's
I believe.
and there's so much grit to that. Like if somebody aligns to their own purpose versus like I think a lot of what's going on in the collective right now is we're shaming people for not jumping on bandwagons. We're shaming people for not showing up or doing the activism thing that we're doing. And yeah, you're right. It's not for everybody. And so like, you know, that shadow of weakness can come up as like, yeah, like if we were fighting every fight, we would be so ineffective, you know? But like
Yeah.
but like, yeah, we can come into that
Yep.
equality that each and every path is equally as important and equally as valuable, and that we can trust that like when we're all together, like, oh look, we each have it all because we can each focus on our one little spot, and then as the collective we're all holding up our little pillars of society of the things that you know are meaningful to us and that we can actually enact change in.
Like Littlefoot says, it takes all sorts. It takes all sorts.
I love it. I haven't heard that one in a
Oh,
while.
I know. It's so good, though. I love that song. I wish I could remember
Hmm.
it all. But that's the discernment piece. Gene Key 13. Who's fighting
Yeah.
what? Me, my battle, now, later, what's going on? How involved do I need to be? I think that discernment is going to be real important. That's a bit of a
Yeah.
carryover from January's theme. With all of that brain fog, we are so inundated these days with what we should think, where we should care about, where, when, where, what, and how, and it's all coming from external sources. And I think that results in like the energy we had in January, that brain fog, that Seven of Swords, having all of this stuff going on and having no idea what to do, what direction you're going in. Where's that discernment? Where's that guidance? And a lot of these planets in February, end of January, February, go direct. We have that forward motion again. And we have this opportunity to start to pick our fight, how we're going to show up, what we're going to contribute to the collective, right? And that is really a calling of Aquarius is what am I doing and how am I supporting and serving this collective and our future goals? Where are we progressing? How are we creating something new, something innovative? How can I make room for everybody at this table? This is non traditional thinking. This is new stuff. And I think when we can have the pivot you were talking about occur and looking at these challenges like a positive thing and working with the conjunctions between Venus, Mercury, Mars, and Pluto as everything transitions into Pluto and everything transitions into Aquarius and coming into conjunction with Pluto as it does so. I'm just name dropping planets everywhere. But as we go through this process of everything going into the Aquarian area, we have an opportunity to view that as a positive thing. And I think that's going to be really important, at least in my survival for the months ahead here, to intentionally choose to show up like I am not in that victim frequency. I am free to choose. I'm free to show up. I'm free to participate. I'm free to co-create. And I choose that over look what's being done to me. So that's an empowerment piece that I
Hmm.
think is
Oh, that's
important.
huge. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And that discernment piece too is like, you know, I love like again, one of my favorite things about the Gene Keys is that it gives us an opportunity to redefine some of these terms. And I think we can think of discernment. A lot of people think it's like judgment, which is like kind of actually a shadow frequency in another gene key, but that's like of the mind, you know. But discernment is such a internal alignment. So to go within and feel your feelings and be in your body and come out of the mind, especially the collective mind, and really seeing like what is alive for me right now. And that like that through that you will be able to discern where you need to navigate within this crazy time, because like you said, like that death and rebirth is touching a lot of different areas, and so focusing and discerning where to put your attention is going to be, I think, important, and you're going to have to trust a lot there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, such a big and dynamic picture that combining astrology and the gene keys and both of these syntheses, is that a word? Both of
Syntheses, yeah,
these
sure.
syntheses provide is crazy. I think the last dynamic that we can look at here is that like Mars and Venus also go conjunct. There's a lot of little relationships that are happening between the individual planets. There's some trines occurring for the planets that aren't in Aquarius, but Mars and Venus go conjunct at some point in Aquarius, which I think is always crazy when this happens, because these are the two lovers, right? You're like symbolic representations of the polarities. You're masculine, you're feminine, you're hard, you're soft, you're, the polarity that in our world creates that chemistry, that dynamic fire juiciness that is life-giving, literally sex. But this area also happens to be February, the month of love. It does not occur on January or on February 14th, which is Valentine's Day. I think it's on the 20th. But engaging in some things that are intentionally passionate, there's going to be a lot of creative juice going on. Of course, we can talk about sex, but it's also for like projects, for other dynamics. There is a lot of that new energy, right? With death comes rebirth. And I think in January, we were focusing a little bit more on the death portion of what was going on with Pluto's dynamic, moving into a new area of the sky in Aquarius, and how forward thinking Aquarius is and how progressive and how future oriented. We are focusing on what we're building. Like, what is the rebirth? What's the start of the end of these other cycles? And it's beautiful that it's the month of love and there's a good amount of opposition and chemistry and energetics to play with. Like, there is a lot of passion, there's a lot of potential. We are ramping up. Like, there is a culminating energy, and it was chaotic and it's going to still be a bit chaotic, but I like really feeling like a great opportunity if you orientate your perspective right and you really hone in on like your stuff, like your niche, whatever you're here rocking right now. You got like, it is juicy. I don't know how many times I can say that, but it's juicy.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting times, and we're gonna need some courage, I think, to face some of these transits that are coming, which is yeah, good practice for me, since I feel like that's kind of been my words for 2024 so far, has been courage. So
Yeah. Well, and I think Aquarius calls us to do that. It's dare to dream, right? Dare to look at the future. Dare to figure out how I'm going to build that future that I know is worth fighting for. It's to be a revolutionary is no timid act. You got to go against the grain. You got to break down other people's comfort zones, which can have a big repercussion.
oh gosh, yeah, I know. And then to still, come back to you and still feel like, and still trust that, like, like, yeah, that you're doing the right thing, even though sometimes you might not reflect back to you that way in the outer world right away, really,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Following that internal guidance system over everyone else's wants, that's or expectations or societal anything. Listening to your own internal guidance instead of being, I guess, in a really complicated way, peer pressured by external expectations and requirements of you. But
Oh gosh, yeah.
call on that Aquarian archetype, man. That's what it's all about. March into the
Absolutely.
beat of your own drum. Be weird. Let your freak flag fly. That was really hard for me to say.
We're here for it. We're
Let
here
your
for
freak
that.
flag fly, friends.
Love that.
All right. You want to
Absolutely.
pull some tarot? How are you
Let's
feeling?
do it. Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about what the card we pulled for the year ahead was? That was like back in
Yes.
December, because I feel like that will be interesting because I feel like I'm always
Yes.
surprised by how amazing that is.
Yeah. So in our year ahead here, I think I'll pull it up. Back in the day for the new 2024 year at a glance, we pulled the Ace of Pentacles for the month of February.
Oh, look, there's something coming from the sky.
Oh, look, it might imply a new beginning. um, yeah, so it definitely, my understanding of Ace of Pentacles, of course, Ace, number one, the new beginnings, fresh starts. But more than actually having something new in your hands that you're deciding to create, the ace speaks to potentiality. Like the world is your oyster of all that you could create. It's not that you've necessarily started creating something yet. It's just like, wow, look at this buffet of options that I have. Look at all of these things I could build, all these ideas, all these potentials, all these options. And because it's a pentacle, this is oriented towards the 3D. So we're talking things like our physical health, or we're talking things like money, possessions, materialism, anything that is literally anchored in the 3D world itself. Very physical, very buildy oriented. So like what new projects, what new money venture, what new house where we live. It's all very earthened, and there's a lot of potential. I think we just covered that with the astrology, so it's crazy seeing how it all lines up, man.
I know, I can't even make this stuff up, I tell ya.
No, I'm not smart enough. Tell you right now, it's beyond me.
No, I love that. That's really potent, and I think that I'm curious to see what other cards we can pull here to get some
Mm-hmm.
more messages.
Yeah. So when we did our monthly forecast there, we pulled the Ace of Pentacles as just an overarching energetic vibe for February. If you haven't seen that forecast, we'll link it in the description below. We pull a card for each and every single month of the year, as well as a year theme card. So it's been really fun for us to be able to take a look back on that video and just see how the energetics are playing out. It's been freaky accurate and affirming and comforting, I guess, knowing that there's a plan or a bigger rhythm or a bigger cycle to it all. So the Ace of Pentacles is the overarching theme for the energetics of February. And if we take a look here, we're doing a subconscious card and a conscious card, right? So we'll do the conscious card first. When we pull the conscious card, it's basically everything that we might want to lean towards, energies that we would want to embody, energies that we would want to, if we see in someone else, try and emulate in ourselves, or maybe surround ourselves with the people who have this type of characteristic or archetypal dynamic going on. It's the good green flag that we want to embody and move towards. And then we'll go and continue on to a subconscious card after. All right. February's conscious card is Judgment.
Ooh, look at that. Opportunity to step out of that.
Yeah, wow. So if you look at this card, all of these people, and it's really intentional. There's like children, there's a mother, a father, it's people of all ages, all walks of life. They're all literally exiting a casket and proffering their naked bodies and their open arms and all that they are, all exposed to Archangel Gabriel, I believe, who is blowing the horn of judgment, right? And this is pretty intense. So it's a major arcana card, which definitely implying some really big energetics, really big opportunities, really big dynamics that are getting called forward, literally called forward. Have any thoughts about the Judgment card? I know you have a lot of thoughts about Judgment as you have a
Judgment
gene key.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like, I guess it's calling us to embrace a higher level of consciousness, I would say. And so it's like, it kind of comes back to everything that we've been talking about. We have this opportunity to do this and to look within our thoughts, within our patterns, and to raise above. And whether that's above, and we're looking at in conjunction with the Aquarian energy as the whole, or looking at it from the individual perspective of just like you know, how have you been showing up? You know, are you in alignment with what you believe in and your belief system and your values? And I think that, you know, being able to look at this is important. And I think it's interesting. There's like we've got the coffin there and like the death and rebirth too. I think that's pretty, again, just on point.
Yeah, the Judgment card is, I think it invokes strong reactions in people because it implies like an outward sense of judgment, like someone is going to bestow judgment onto you. And it can kind of call our attention to the areas of our lives in which we are wanting external approval or outward affirmation, reward, praise, to be seen and celebrated, right? Really craving that. I think it also talks about our ability to then switch our search for approval internal and to, I guess, critique our own actions, pivot our own actions, and look for our own approval, that internal kind of sense of striving, as opposed to looking for someone outside of us to tell us that we're doing good or not. But I think in regards to this reading in particular, I really see the ownership and responsibility, like you talked about there, and the accountability for your actions. These people are butt naked and they cannot hide what they are, what they did, who they, like, you're in front of essentially the Almighty and they have been stripped bare and it's all exposed. This is very much so like the proof is in the pudding. When you are ripped down to your foundation of who you are, what is there, and what do you have to build off of? Do your words match and align with your actions? Are you living to the best of your ability within your integrity and with a good character? Like, I think this speaks hugely to all that is fake will fall away. With Pluto visiting all of those personal planets, those are all personal planets, planets that directly contribute to who you are, how you move in this world. You have an opportunity to get really in alignment with the way you show up. And I think if there has been any dissonance in the way you move, practicing what you preach, your authenticity and your sense of character in this world, there has been a dissonance. I think this is the call to allow yourself to transform that and to really step into more of a clean and clear version of yourself.
Yeah, and it's in the subconscious too. This was the subconscious pull, right?
No, this is the conscious.
Oh, this is the conscious pull. Okay, so we're bringing consciousness to this area. Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's like, yeah, we're choosing to engage with these energies. Like this is the choosing to, we're choosing to show up and be like, okay, this is who I am and this is who I'm not. And we're going to figure it out as we go. Like, see all that I am. Because I don't think we have a choice. That's what I'm saying here with Pluto. I don't think we have a choice. I think it's gonna put you out there and show all of your stuff, especially the fact that this is an Aquarius, which is in our friend groups, our social dynamics, our workplace with our peers, our community. Who are you in those places? And how much do you look for your community's sense of approval instead of being able to follow for your own drum, right?
Yeah.
Internal approval, external.
Totally. And the victim kind of comes out a little bit in this one too, in that like we've been kind of like looking outwardly and seeing things that, you know, maybe judging the external, like seeing things in the collective and judging and doing this. And now it's like, oh, like, how are you? Like, usually like what we see in the outer world is a reflection of something within us. So we're being forced to see the other side of that coin. Why is that coming up for you? Instead of it just being victim of what's out here, let's take responsibility. And with that, in the gene key comes freedom when we take responsibility for our piece of what we're seeing out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the fact that Judgment is a major arcana card, like this is happening in big ways in February. Like it's going to be large and not so subtle, I don't think. Not necessarily tumultuous. Like I'm still holding true to the fact that like how you choose to show up and work with this is going to be your pivotal part here. But this is like, how are you showing up? Like, what do you have when you're all naked and your arms are out and there's an angel looking into your soul? What's really there? Do you know? Because if you don't know, you're going to be called to figure it the F out.
Very vulnerable space for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, especially when you take into consideration the Ace of Pentacles and the overarching theme of February that we're seeing emerge here, we are talking about sheer potential. And when you strip us, like, we are nothing but potential. When you take away that programming, you take away those limitations and those belief systems and those patterns. Like, what do you want to co-create? Who are you? What is your ideal that you and your equip? But what foot are you putting forward? What baggage are you bringing? There's that judgment, that discernment, that all exposed energy that's going on with those personal planets and that rebirth.
Wow. What's our subconscious now? What's the underlying factors that we need to be aware of? Influences, I should say.
Yeah. Undercurrents, things that are working without our knowledge per se.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny because the subconscious card I often feel like is working against me, but really it's working for my evolution just in a way that I don't really know about or am comfortable with.
Wait, I'm not in control.
What do you mean you want me to do that? That's bullshit. Oh, great. All right. So the subconscious card is the Three of Pentacles. It's actually reversed, so that makes it extra juicy, but there you can see that. So this one, really, when it's upright, is talking about like you being somewhat a master or mastering a skill or an area in the 3D. Again, we're working with pentacles here. So definitely like the 3D earthened materialistic money, jobs, physical food, body kind of realm. And the 3 often speaks of working well in groups towards a project and stuff. This is a subconscious card and it's reversed, so there's definitely a different flavor. For me, especially with the energetics that are going on, we've got the Ace of Pentacles, Judgment, and all of the astrological juju. This really feels like, because it's reversed, because it's subconscious, we're going to have issues with our friend groups in February. We're going to be called to potentially leave groups if it's not harmonious, if it's not serving that Ace of Pentacles, that new beginning, that direction we want to move in. Solo work. I think we are going to bring all of who we are to the table with that Judgment card and being brave and risking it for the biscuit. And I think it's going to cause a lot of shifts, a lot of dynamics, and a lot of things to move within our friend groups, our communities, whether we work in projects, our humanitarian volunteer groups, all of the interpersonal peer relationships we have. With the Three of Pentacles, it would usually speak of like working really conducively and really well in that group, but something is sticky. It's not working anymore. We're all being called, with Pluto doing what it's doing in February, we're all being called to revolutionize our senses of selves and how we relate to the world around us. And this is definitely that energy to me of like not being appreciated or understood in like a work or collaborative dynamic. And I think it definitely makes me think of people not trusting someone's skill or expertise because they don't know why or how that person knows it. So like if you're in a work situation and you're like, no, this is how this is going to go. Trust me, I know, because blah, blah, blah. But your blah, blah, blah explanation is not hitting it for the people that you're working with anymore. Because they don't like trust your knowing, right? Because you're speaking from more of like a internal knowing and an internal guidance system per se. So it's definitely that energy of people not trusting your skills or your expertise. So I think that that's going to be, our friends are not necessarily on board with our pivots and change. So I think we're going to struggle. We're going to struggle with our friend groups, I think.
Yeah, well said. I think that definitely aligns with a lot of the astrology that came up as well too. Yeah, the biggest hit I get from that one is just the kind of that feeling of being alone, like it's like, and I think that like remembering like this journey, this aligning to our passions, this stripping down bare is that you, I mean, like look at the Judgment card, like you are alone. You're like you're there, you're bare, you're not, you can't hide behind others. So there's this kind of like being seen kind of aspect there as well too. And that, like you said, working alone. But I also feel like, within that, like maybe more, we'll say negative aspect working against, like you said, you need to look at it like, oh, it's happening for you to evolve. I think it's in this process, we realize we aren't alone, but within we aren't, when we go within, we're not alone, and we have that discernment piece coming in and that like bringing it back to the bigger picture. But yet you know, when you really sum it all up and look at, it's like ultimately we also are alone on this spiritual path as well. It's that kind of
Yeah.
polarity. We are, but we aren't.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a paradox. And I think too, like, I think we're being called to have to trust our internal guidance system, because your friend group's not going to be there either, right? Like when a door closes in your face, it's usually because the universe, God, source, all that is good and juju out there is opening a window or a better door. It's not a failure or a shortcoming or even necessarily a death. A lot of the time it can be just a really intense pivot and a redirection. And being in a situation where we don't have that support group that was perpetuating patterns in ourselves, we're even more forced to stand on our own and march to the beat of our own drum and anchor in that internal alignment and that internal knowing and our own personal direction and our own refinement process to get really clear on what frequency we are and who we are. Especially, you have to stay true to that in a group of people who don't like it, when you're attacked or you're ridiculed or you're ostracized, when you are painted as a villain, when you are smeared and told that you're X, Y, and Z. A lot of the time, those claims and statements are usually some of our biggest fears, right? To be rejected, to be denied. That is all something I feel like we're going to be called to face here, because you are risking showing up as your authentic self. You are risking bringing your whole self to the table, and that's going to rub people the wrong way who have not received you that way before. So it's definitely a shift in the way we're working with people. I also think it's a great opportunity that like the people who get you and are on board will double down and be doubly on board, you know? So it's going to be a bit rocky. But I hope that we drove home in this conversation that like how you choose to show up and engage with these energies is what's going to make or break the way this unrolls and unravels in your own life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great.
I know, I'm like, I don't know why, but I was thinking about this the other day because I knew we were doing this, and I was like, oh, I should intuitively try and connect to February, and I like totally just dropped it at that moment. Never, like, I was resisting it, and I'm like, yeah, maybe now I know why.
You don't wanna.
I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm so excited with the fact that Pluto is out of Capricorn, because I have multiple Capricorn placements. My Neptune, my Mercury, my Sun, my not Saturn. I got another one that's in there too. So many Capricorn placements. I'm like, yay, Pluto's not going to be in there. But Pluto just moves into Aquarius, and Aquarius is my moon sign. January.
I was like, oh, that's gonna be funny to watch on camera.
Oh, I guess I should stop recording.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I guess we should end it.
Oh yeah, I guess so. That wasn't a good.
We just taper off like that. Bye. Sorry. Yes. So February is going to be a busy one. I am excited. Of course, Alchemy's intention with these forecasts is to always give you just a bit of a glimpse into the patterns and all of the fun stuff that's coming up. I truly hope, Alana, that we make it through giggling and enjoying the journey as we always do. We'll see you all on the other side with another forecast for the next month, and so on and so forth. Let us know in the comments below if you're feeling this energy. Enjoy February. May the force be with you. Best of luck.